So Kanye West had his little meeting with Trump, and it seems like a lot of people are sort of divided on how they feel about Kanye's behavior. There's definitely a lot of people that are just absolutely disgusted by him, but then you also have people that think, well, he's got a mental disorder, so that needs to be considered first. Um, you know, uh, I think it's okay for to be a little bit of both. Concerned, because he obviously needs medication, and he claims he saw a neuropsychologist that told him that he didn't have bipolar disorder. I don't know. That's definitely tricky. Because I mean, I'm pretty well versed on these things. I mean, for one, I do have bipolar disorder, but my focus in school was psychology, and a lot of focus on research, and I did dabble a little bit into the to the neuro side of it. But as far as determining whether or not he has bipolar via looking at his brain, I don't know. I would say that the doctor would have to sort of keep him in the fMRI or the MRI, whichever one he used, for throughout his entire episode of being of bipolarism. Um, because I mean, I think a lot of people are confused about what bipolar means. I mean, I think people get the basic gist of it, that you sort of uh, do sort of a balancing act between two extremes of mood. You're either really fucking manic and sort of out of your mind, or you're really depressed. But what a lot of people don't seem to realize is that with bipolar disorder, this isn't something that, like, comes and goes within a day or two, or or a couple of days. You don't go on a manic stage and then 2 or 3 days later you're back into um into the depressive phase of the disorder. That's not how it works. Now, if anything, that's closer to what do you call it, borderline personality disorder, where it is possible for somebody to sort of go through the whole gamut of emotions pretty rapidly. And it's possible that what Kanye West has is borderline personality disorder, although that is a disorder that affects primarily females. It's not that males don't get it, but it's just something that sort of, primarily affects them. you know but he might be experiencing that, and because they are going through such extremes of emotion and mood, um it can mimic what most people think of as bipolar disorder, but it's not. And Kanye West might very well have that. um where I have a problem, though, with the way he behaves and the people that he seems to have glommed onto, is that usually when you're in your manic phase, when you're bipolar, you do a lot of thrill seeking. And I guess you could say that this is what Kanye West is doing, that it really isn't that he feels the way that he does about Trump and and black people and all of that. This could be just his version of thrill seeking, just to see, like, okay, how nutty can I be before somebody stops me? That's not usually how it works, though. I mean, as somebody that that has bipolar disorder, you have a lot of crazy thoughts. Like when he was going through "I'm a fucking genius" stage and all of that, a few years ago, I could say, yeah, okay, that definitely sounds like like typical for the manic stage of bipolarism. Because you have these grandiose thoughts of yourself. Before I was medicated, there was a time, where I had a manic episode where I was in complete bliss, right? But I also thought that I was a messenger from God, like a real messenger, not like fucking old squinty eyes there that didn't open up his church during the flood. I mean, I thought I was actually like picked by God to change the world. And when it was happening, it felt awesome. It was like, yes, if I could just convince people to hear me out. And I remember a conversation I had with my mom, where, I went on and on for like 2 hours about, how I was going to change the world, that I was going to write this book that was going to, it was going to change everybody's perspective on like racism. And, my intentions were good. They were it was crazy talk. And I remember my mother being, like, she didn't say anything right away, but like after I'd sort of come out of that manic phase, she was like, I thought, she was actually worried for me, which is weird because, if you listen to my podcast, I've mentioned numerous times that she was an absolute monster to me growing up. She treated my sister like she was queen of the fucking world, but she treated me like I fucking was like a plague upon her house. But it was unusual when she was like, I genuinely felt concerned that you were either going to do something crazy, like, end up in a fucking nut house, or you were going to kill yourself. She was genuinely concerned that was the path that I was heading down. Luckily, it didn't happen, and then luckily I got medicated, and I haven't had those that sort of stuff happen ever since. So, for Kanye West to jump off his meds, it's a really bad idea. But when you're in a manic stage, you do things to make yourself feel better. Now, it might make Kanye West feel better to sort of, go to the extreme as far as being different, and appearing to be sort of a trendsetter. So for him, maybe he's convinced that if he just dedicates enough of his time and energy towards, showing his love for Trump, maybe he's convinced that he will slowly but surely convince others to his way of thinking. Now, the problem with this is that doesn't have a chance in hell. At least, I would say that the African American community is definitely not happy with Kanye, especially his stance on, when he went off about slavery being a fucking choice, and that, and I guess his latest thing was that black people should just sort of get over the past and stop, victimizing yourself, even though, to some degree, I guess that's true. It would be great if African Americans could sort of forget the past, but I imagine that what keeps that from happening is the constant reminder of the sort of second-class citizenhood that a lot of African American people are treated like. It doesn't help getting over the past when you see, innocent, unarmed black people being gunned down in the street by the police, and there's no repercussions whatsoever for doing so. It might be a little hard to let go of the past, watching, even just ordinary citizens like, like a George Zimmerman or others that, aren't police officers, gun down black people and basically, get fucking patted on the back for doing so. This idea that people have that, the only thing holding African Americans back is because they won't let go of the fucking past. I mean, that's fucking crazy talk. Because I would say that if things were actually equal, if there was no racism, if you didn't see like innocent person after innocent person being gunned down by the police and they getting away with it, if you didn't, constantly have fucking barbecue Bettys and permit patties fucking calling the police on black people for basically just existing. If you didn't see these things, then I think the argument would be valid that, okay, yeah, some horrific fucking shit happened, a few hundred years ago. I would imagine that it would be easy for them to get over that if this other shit wasn't just constantly thrown in their face. There are people that, that will make the argument when an innocent African American person gets gunned down by the police. There are people that will make the argument that it's like, oh, well, what about the black on black crime? As though one has anything to do with the fucking other. I assume that, obviously I can't speak for African Americans here, but I assume that the reason that they can't let go of the past is because the past hasn't let go of them. And for Kanye West to say something like that, I don't know if you can blame that on the bipolarism, because he's also buddy with that Candace Owens lady, who is definitely what you would consider somebody that hates her own people. Her thoughts are being echoed by Kanye West. You want to know where all the sort of anti-black conversation that's coming from Kanye West, you want to know where that's coming from? Look no further than videos of Candace Owen saying basically some of the same shit. His words are not his own. And the fact that he is glommed on to her and to others that sort of share that sentiment that, black people should probably just shut the fuck up and, and quit pretending like racism is still a thing. These are people that, sort of epitomize, what's that phrase that they would call like Uncle Toms? They're looking for nothing more than just acceptance by the same people that would, in a heartbeat, put them right back in chains. There's no doubt in my mind that if Donald Trump or just the government, at least as it stands now, if they were somehow able to convince or put through that, slavery should be like reenacted and black people should be, put back in chains, there's no doubt in my mind that, that Donald Trump would absolutely implement it. And it wouldn't happen because you're just not dealing with that sort of African American mindset anymore, where you could just round up black people and put them back in chains and really expect that they were ever going to go back to that. That's just not going to fucking happen. But there's no doubt in my mind that if that if Trump could get that done, he definitely would. And so all, or not just Trump, but people like Trump, they would definitely push for that. And these sort of self-hating African American people that have dedicated so much of their time sort of trumpeting, no pun intended, the mindset of the racist white perspective. There's no doubt in my mind that they will have a rude awakening when the chains are now put on them, because they thought that they were going to be spared, right? It's kind of like the Mexican people, right? I forget if it was like in Arizona or whatever, that were, huge Trump supporters and were definitely pushing his immigration policy, and were just gung ho about it until ICE showed up and took, this particular, I don't know if he owned the restaurant or if he was just like the manager or whatever, but came and took him, right? And there was this outpouring of support, like, well, why would you take him? Basically he's one of the good ones. He voted for Trump. Why would you take? He's not the one that's, committing the crimes or whatever. And, and they had pretty much a rude awakening that, when it comes down to it, you're not safe either. If things were ever to sort of reverse completely in this country, where segregation becomes a thing and, they try and basically stick people of color in internment camps or whatever, you better believe that just because you spent your entire existence sucking up to white America, you better believe you're going to be in there with everybody else. You're not safe. So, and of course this is a huge assumption on my part, Every now and then I'm confused about whether or not Trump is as racist. I know he's definitely bigoted to some degree. He's definitely bigoted, but racist, I don't know. To me, they're sort of different, right? Racist to me, is basically, I just hate people because of who they are and the color of their skin or whatever. And there is no, I can be friends or we can hang out or we can, fucking have lunch there. There's just, if you're racist, you're pretty much like that. But if you're bigoted, it's like, well, this is just my perspective. I could be completely wrong. But if you're bigoted, you could be like, well, we can be friends, but I have a really sort of stereotypical view of particular people. And, while I'll say that, yeah, that this person's, he's really nice and he doesn't sort of fit that stereotype, that sort of goes along with, he's one of the good ones. I think that's a bigot. I think a racist is somebody who's just absolutely, fuck those people. I don't want anything to do with them. I'm not going to fucking sit and have lunch or pretend that, that I enjoy being in their, in their company. To me, that's what a racist is. And I don't really know if Trump fits that. He definitely fits a bigot. I think he's absolutely bigoted, but, I don't know. It's up to you to decide, I don't know. Am I wrong here? Is there a difference? Can you be a bigot but not a racist? I mean, I would assume that, okay, if you're racist, you're definitely a bigot, right? But if you're a bigot, are you also a racist? If you just have sort of strong feelings about another group, but you're not actively trying to, go after them or make their lives worse or whatever. I mean, there is a difference, right? I don't know, but you guys need to hold on because I gotta fucking use the bathroom. So hold on. Although you won't know because it'll be like, a nano fucking second, however long that is between when I hit pause and when I come back. So you won't know how long I'm gone. But anyway, hold on. And I'm back. I don't know. I guess going back to Kanye West, the people that he has decided to surround himself with, I think is an indication of how he legitimately feels. I think that yes, he does have some sort of psychological disorder or mental illness, however you want to describe it. Is it bipolar disorder? I don't know. I would say it's probably more borderline personality disorder. But who knows? Obviously, I would have to sit down with Kanye and actually, have a series of conversations and sort of, evaluate him that way. These little snapshots of, his behavior aren't really clear indicators of really anything. Kanye West has always been sort of on a different level with things, and I don't say that as a compliment. He's eccentric. Sometimes eccentric people are compelling, and sometimes they're fucking they're dangerous and they're a nightmare. Kanye West is sort of leaning heavily towards being dangerous, with his comments about African Americans, and it's just it's just I don't know. I don't know what's going on with him, but I would assume that, I don't know what's going on with him for sure, but considering the people that he has surrounded himself with, I have to say that going through a manic stage or not, you're getting a glimpse of kind of how he views the world. He's always been very, very self-assured, very confident of his ability. It will be interesting to see what happens next for him, because I think he has sort of dug his own grave, so to speak, with a lot of the black community, which, is, I don't know if you can say that's like the majority of his fan base, because whenever they run the numbers, especially when it comes to rap and hip hop, it turns out that a lot of the rappers have more of a white fan base than anything else. But he might have just sort of committed career suicide. And there's also talks lately that Kim Kardashian is considering divorcing him, which is understandable. There's going to be some people that are obviously going to be like, well, how could she abandon him, during his time of need? But the problem is she's been doing it this entire time. And for some people, there's a limit. For some people, it's just like, well, I've been here. I've tried to get you help. I've tried to be supportive. You decided that you're going to go off your meds and you're going to make all these very crazy sounding, statements. Your behavior is starting to affect, my life and the kids' life. I could certainly understand if that's the route she's going. And, not that I really give a shit about Kim Kardashian. I can't stand the Kardashian weasel creatures. I think that the fact that they're famous for Kim fucking blowing Ray J is kind of absurd. I think that entire family is sort of a symbol of everything that is sort of wrong with our society. this, I don't know. I don't want to go into a big long thing about the Kardashians, but I won't blame Kim if she does it. She's obviously a lot stronger person than a lot of people. And in fact, I the other day, there was a story people were making a big deal. It was like right after Kanye was on Saturday Night Live and went into his sort of Trump celebration on air. And everybody was just like freaking out and just like, oh, fuck this guy. We're sick of, his support of Trump. And, don't get me wrong. I don't care that he supports Trump. If that's who he supports, that's who he supports. I just don't like what, the other stuff that he's doing. The fact that he is throwing his own community under the bus in order to gain approval from a bigoted guy that is really just sort of destroying the country from the inside out. But everybody was losing their shit about his Saturday Night Live performance, and then I think the following day, a picture sprouts up of Kim Kardashian in some ridiculously revealing bikini. And for a while, everybody stopped talking about Kanye and they were talking about her. Now, there are some people that are going to think, well, she's just an attention whore. Maybe she was, upset that Kanye was getting all the attention. I didn't read it that way. The way I read it was she sort of jumped on the grenade. Everybody was getting ready to lash out at Kanye West. So she puts on this crazy fucking bikini and gets basically takes all of the fucking heat off of him for a little while. To me, it was probably the first honorable thing I've seen her do. Now, I could be, completely misreading her intentions. It could be, that she was just looking for some attention, but to me it seems sort of, I don't know, it seemed kind of a weird coincidence that literally the day or two after Kanye does yet something else to enrage society, she decides to post this picture and sort of get everybody talking about her and focused on, how she's not supposed to wear whatever the fuck she wants to wear and all of that shit. I mean, to me, it seems honorable, but if, again, I might just be, misconstruing her intentions. I'd like to think that under all of the fucking plastic and bullshit, there is, somebody with at least a little bit of fucking integrity inside that person. So I have to assume, or I'm going to just assume, that the reason she did that was she was basically falling on the grenade. She was like, okay, everybody's getting ready to ramp it up on Kanye. He's off his meds, so this is definitely going to push him even further into some sort of manic stage. So what can I do to relieve the heat off of him? And I think, if you want to look at it as, why there's suddenly all this buzz about Kim Kardashian divorcing him, I would say it could be considered, if I were her, it could be considered a slap in the face. It's like, hey, I did something that took the heat off of you. I had to deal with people calling me a whore and talking all sorts of shit, and then you turn around and you go have fucking this public lunch with Trump, and you immediately launch right back into into your attack of your own community. She might be like, well, you know what, that was kind of a slap in the face. Like, why did I endure all of that just so you can continue to upset everybody? I mean, again, I am 100% projecting how I would view the situation. I could be completely off. I would say that that Kanye is, he seemed like he would be a lot to deal with, in a relationship. their kids are starting to get of age where they're going to start noticing that dad is a little fucking, nutty. And, we don't know what he's like in private, but I have to imagine that that his behavior doesn't just completely turn off when they're at home. Kanye definitely looks like somebody that he either feels like he has to be 100% in control, or he doesn't want anything to do with it. That's what he appears from the little fucking glimpses into his personality. He definitely seems like the kind of person that it's like, it's either my way or it's fucking no way, which, really, if you think about it, is no surprise that he views Donald Trump as some sort of fatherly figure, because Donald Trump is kind of the same way, right? He might feel a legitimate connection with Trump because they are, sort of two birds of the same feather, or birds of a feather, however that fucking phrase goes. I don't know. And I really can't believe that I've spent a half an hour talking about Kanye West, but, to sort of summarize, I definitely think he's got some psychological disabilities. He's definitely got mental illness. Whether or not it's, bipolar, I'm not sure about that one. Like I said, it more closely resembles borderline personality disorder than anything else. I think part of the blame is the mental illness. I think that kind of what bipolar disorder or mental illness a lot of the time sort of amplifies who people are. It takes like especially with bipolar, right? It's not unusual for people to have to sort of hold themselves in high regard, even if you don't suffer any sort of mental illness. Most people, we tend to view, we might nitpick things like, I could lose a little bit of weight or whatever, but generally, God, I can't fucking talk. We tend to sort of hold ourselves up to high regard. We may not think that we're the greatest people on the fucking planet, but we're not always, we're definitely not shitting on ourselves all the time. So when somebody has an illness like bipolar disorder, what it does is it sort of, at least during the manic phase, is it sort of it turns the fucking volume up on that view of yourself, right? So let's say you're just somebody that's sort of mildly vain, when everything's, balanced. But when, or not even mildly vain. So I know I'm getting fucking babbling here. Okay, let's just take Kanye West, right? When he is medicated or when he isn't going through a manic stage, he's not exactly humble. He's not as braggadocious as he is when he's manic, but, he's not what I would consider a humble guy. He definitely thinks very high of himself. So when he goes through these manic stages, that just gets amplified. So what you're seeing is not so much he's like a completely different person. What he is basically, this is his personality sort of on steroids, if that makes any sense. So when people say like, oh, he's not responsible for his behavior, or that's not him, I would have to say that not really. He's always been sort of very self-centered. So it's really no surprise that he feels like, when he's going through his manic phases, that he feels like he now needs to be the spokesman of the world for the African American community, that he feels like not only being the spokesman, but he feels like he is the example. And this is really just his own personality amplified by the mania. So when he says things like, black people should stop feeling, letting themselves be victimized, and they should put the past behind them, to some degree, he actually believes that. It's just that the manic stage allowed him to sort of freely, kind of remove the filter. When he's not going through the manic stage, he probably won't say something like that, but he'll definitely be thinking it. It's definitely crossed his mind. And considering who he's hanging out with, especially Candace Owens, it's really no surprise that that's the sort of tone he's taken when he's in his manic stage. It's just like, well, the filter's off. I'll say what I want. And, because people love me, I can get away with it. So yeah, it's sad that he's going through this mental illness, but at the same time, he is still sort of responsible for the things that he fucking does while in that manic stage. He does, you don't get a free pass. I could say it about myself that, yeah, I thought, when I was going through a manic stage, yeah, I thought I was so fucking special that I was, a messenger of God, somebody that was chosen by God to change the fucking world. Right. Can I say that there's still not a little bit of that conceit inside me that I feel like, oh yeah, I could, I'm pretty sure I could write a book that would change things. The fact that I'm on this podcast, acting as if there is really anybody actually listening to this is a sign that, yeah, I do, to some degree, I do hold myself to maybe a little higher regard than most others do. I'm on medication now, so it doesn't get out of control. I'm able to be humble now. I realized that, that was all just fucking crazy talk. And, and I am just some jackass sitting at his dining room table, staring out the fucking, the front window, talking to himself, So I don't really feel as strongly about feeling sorry for I feel sorry on a fundamental level of it sucks, because I know what it's like to be going through something like this, and and to not be medicated and to feel completely sort of out of control. But at the same time, it's not like being, bipolarism is not the same as, say, like somebody that suffers from multiple personality disorder, where where there are just different offshoots of who you are, and they are, to some degree completely opposite of who you are. It's not the same. Bipolar disorder only sort of amplifies who you already are. It just turns the volume way up to the point where you just no longer have that sort of ability to filter your thoughts or your actions to sort of, remain incognito within society. So Kanye West, this is how he actually feels. This is his feelings. It's just that he feels freer when he's going through this mania, through this manic stage. He feels freer to say whatever it is that's on his mind. It's only when he's come down off of the manic stage that he's like, oh shit, I fucking used my inside voice on the outside. That's when you hear like, oh, I never meant to hurt anybody or whatever. It's not that like, oh, I don't, you never once heard him really say, I don't actually believe those things. It's just, I apologize that I hurt people. And there's a difference. Because one is like, I don't know what the fuck I was talking about. I don't believe any of that shit. And the other is just, I'm sorry that basically you got upset by the things that I actually think. So my sympathy for Kanye is sort of limited. You know, I feel bad. He needs to be medicated, but at the same time, this is sort of, you know, this is a glimpse of who he actually is. And does he does he deserve support beyond this? I don't know. I've never really been a huge fan of Kanye in the first place. He's made a couple of songs that I thought were okay, but I've never been like, you know, I never saw him as like this fucking genius that everybody, you know, thinks that he is, at least musically. You know, I think that, you know, he's good at what he does, but he's just a little too fucking, I don't know. He just, I don't know. His music isn't for me. His personality isn't for me. I don't find anything really fascinating about him at all. And I think he is, you know, he's a danger to his own community, you know. And a good sign that, oh, he's a danger. A good sign is of that is when you have people that basically sort of fit the bill of being, you know, bigoted, racist assholes saying, oh, yeah, I love Kanye, you know, because he's saying what I want to hear. You know, when the enemy agrees with you, that's a bad sign. When the enemy suddenly feels like, yeah, he's one of us. He feels like black people should shut the fuck up too. You know, I'm just glad that the person that said it was actually black, so we didn't have to fucking say it. You know, that's all it is. And it is a danger when you say shit like that and you get these people to be like, yeah, I completely agree. Black people should shut the fuck up and get over the past. No, we don't have to do anything about gun control. No, we don't have to do anything about the police. What they really need to do is they need to work on the black on black crime, because that's the real problem. Not the fact that police are just, you know, murdering people left and right and, you know, with no fucking consequence. No, that's not the problem. What the problem is what's going on in Chicago. That's the real problem. You know, it's just when you have people like that agreeing with you, you're officially a danger to your own community. So, I mean, for me, it's not really any love lost. I never really liked the guy anyway. But, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And what's going to be even more interesting is if Kim Kardashian does finally leave him, it's going to be, what you're going to see is his entire world is going to come crashing down. And I have a feeling that instead of being like reaching out for help, he's going to surround himself with Trump-like people and become even more prolific with his thoughts. He will essentially become the new Sheriff David A. Clark or whatever. And for those of you that don't know who that guy is, go look him up. He's this ridiculous fucking guy. I guess he was like a sheriff or some shit. You know, he's black dude with a fucking cowboy hat on. So that should be pretty much all the explanation needed. You know, Kanye West is he'll basically become that guy. He's already on his way. But if Kim leaves him, that's where he's headed. I don't see Kanye admitting like, oh fuck, I really need help. What I think will happen is he will somehow blame Kim, call her disloyal, say that she was holding him back and all of that, and he doesn't need this and he doesn't need that, and they would be nothing without him, even though they were something even before him. You know, it's going to be ugly, but it's going, that part will fascinate me. It's just watching this guy completely fucking implode. Now, of course, the extreme that I would never want to see happen is that he implodes and then he ends up killing himself, which is also very, very likely. You know, that I don't wish that upon anybody, you know. But watching what will happen, watching as he wraps himself in that blanket of of conservative bullshit, because that's all it is. Because the minute he says something that they don't like, they'll go right back to hating him, just like they did when he was, when he got on TV and said George Bush hates black people. They will go right back to hating him. And it's gonna be sad on some level, because he's gonna realize that, oh shit, I'm now completely alone. And it's at that point where it'll either be a turning point for him. He'll either realize, I fucking need to start, repairing some of the bridges I burnt, or I just need to disappear completely and no one will ever hear from me again. That will be the interesting part of all of this. But anyway, I think I've talked long enough. I had other shit that I wanted to talk about, like the fucking YouTube video. I've called it the fucking roundhouse kick heard around the world. It is fucking hilarious. I mean, if you have a sick sense of humor like I do, there's this video of this guy. I guess he's like a human rights guy, or he's at I think he's at a pro-life rally, but he is pro-choice, of course, and he's having a conversation with some lady off camera. I think she's the one holding the camera, and they're having a conversation, and it starts off pretty civil. The clip is only at least the one that I saw, is only 45 seconds, so a lot happens within this 45 seconds, but they're going back and forth, and he's like, oh, I think he said something about well, if a woman is raped, and, should she have to keep the kid or whatever, just something along those lines. Right. And then you hear the lady that he's talking to is like, yeah, abortion is murder or some shit. She says something like that. And then just out of fucking nowhere, this guy roundhouse kicks her. Oh, it's great. I mean, the video cuts pretty much after that, because the camera fucking falls, but it is just that extreme of a fucking, it came out, he took the whole thing from 0 to 100 in a second. I mean, it started off that they were just sort of cordially, having a conversation, and then, you could see that he's starting to get irritated, but not I'm going to kick you sort of irritation. And then just out of fucking nowhere, he just roundhouse. And he does it so nonchalant, it was all fucking pre-planned. It's just, I don't know. Go watch the fucking video. It is absolutely fucking hilarious. I had to watch it 10 times in a row just because it's fucking, oh my, just watch it. You'll see. Unless you don't have my kind of sense of humor, and then, be like, oh, how dare he kick her, whatever. But yeah, watch that, and then, I don't know, have a good fucking weekend, because it is Friday. I did record 2 podcasts again, and obviously I haven't released the other one. I recorded that one yesterday. Wait, is it Friday or is it Thursday? No, it's Friday. I recorded that one yesterday, but I didn't release it because, I don't know. It feels like, it kind of feels like how I'm going to do things from now on, because I made that podcast, and that one is just sort of more of the fucking same as far as me talking about politics and shit. And it's just I made it, but I didn't release it because I'm like, do people really want to hear this shit? Maybe I should make another one on Friday. Try and, as best I can to stay away from fucking politics, and just, and just kind of decide, is it going to be, just this podcast that I release, or am I going to release that one and not this one, or am I going to release both? I don't know. You'll find out whenever I fucking release this. So anyway, have a good weekend. Hope you had a good week. And, like always, don't take any shit and go fuck yourself. Peace.